together in one place on Battle.net for these two games as well as all the future Blizzard games and beyond. So we think it's the right move for us, and we feel like, you know, the things that we've seen from NetEase so far are on a daily basis are proving that the decision is right. They're just a great company, great management, great folks that put the customer first, and that's what we really concentrate on at Blizzard every day is players, players, players.
Now, let me ask you about expanding the business. You've done a lot globally, obviously. I think one question we get a lot on Twitter from folks is, you know, asking about the video game console space. Blizzard, you know, totally dominates the PC space. You're one of the few companies that sort of is still on PC right now. You guys are dominant, obviously, and you know, you're one of the few companies I think can be really successful in the PC space. But you guys have not done a lot in the console space. StarCraft Ghost was talked about for a long time. That's no longer in development. Are you guys actively thinking about the console space still? Or?
We're actively thinking about console all the time. We have been forever. The question always comes down to, is the game we're making right for that platform? We focus on what the game is, first and foremost, what our developers want to play next, because they're all gamers, and as a result, what they want to make next. We really try to listen to the players out there. We see how they like the different types of games we make, and ultimately, that's really the focus as it relates to that. But then you say, okay, console, well, the big deal for us is, let's come up with the game we want to make. If it's right for PC, it'll go there. If it's right for console, it'll go there. But are we going to force ourselves onto console because it's going to give us access to a broader audience? No, it's not. That's not the reason. That's not the reason. You know, people think, oh, well, you do it because you'll make more money there. Well, not necessarily. Right. We have a pretty captive audience on the PC, and console is much more crowded. It's also a more difficult business model, candidly, because you're having to cut in all of the console publishers. Right. And to be honest with you, know, from a business perspective, not necessarily the right answer, but bottom line, it's all about the player. Is this game right for it? And if we find that these games that we're developing are right for console, it'll go there. It's just got to be about the game.
But with 4 games in development right now, do you think that your developers design with that in mind, or is that never going to come into play?
I didn't...
I mean, you have 4 games that are in development right now, so you could, you know, if it's all about the game and whether the game is right, well, the designer could just say, well, I'm going to design the game for the console business.
Well, we certainly could, but I think the game developers have a vision of what they want to play. Right. Some people are really pro-console, right? I mean, I play a lot of console games, maybe even sometimes, depending on what games are out, more than PC. If StarCraft's out, then it's all about PC. Right. But otherwise, I like to do that. And I think, you know, we have a lot of people saying, hey, we should put, you know, this product or that product on console. But at the end of the day, when the team leadership on each of those products get together, they got to make a call. Are we going to be making compromises with our core audience on the PC by trying to put it onto a console? And if we think that we're going to have to make too many compromises and the gameplay experience that they envision is going to be compromised as a result, then we're not going to go there. I think that there will be a day that we will have a product on console. I don't know if that's, you know, in 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, but I could envision that, because I do feel like eventually the game that our guys want to make will be most suited there.
Have you ruled out console for Diablo 3 at this point, or is that still
no? We haven't.
On the table?
We certainly. I mean, we're speaking with all the usual suspects, as you might expect, and they have some compelling arguments. Right. We also have some compelling arguments why not to. So we're listening a lot right now to what they have to say to see if it makes sense on the business side, but ultimately what's right for the product and right for the players is what will prevail every time for Blizzard, and so time will tell. And if I'll tell you what, if we do that, it would probably be an event like this that we would talk about it.
All right,
not this time.
We'll have to wait maybe for BlizzCon 2010. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll see you again tomorrow. Now, one of the great things at Blizzard is that this company has amazing internal resources, and we talked about the World of Warcraft film and how Blizzard might be involved in that. Well, they also have an amazing cinematics department, and now we're going to take you guys behind the scene for a really interesting feature about how they made the cinematic for World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King.
I'm Matt Samian. I'm the Senior Director of Cinematics, which means I run the Cinematics division. Cinematics, in terms of Blizzard Cinematics, means we create all of the pre-rendered short films that go into our games. So that's for StarCraft, that's for Diablo, that's for World of Warcraft. Lately, we've also been doing in-engine cinematics for StarCraft, which has been really cool. We're gonna have about 45 minutes worth of in-game, in-engine, real-time cinematics for StarCraft 2. So we operate just as any other CG film studio. We are an animation studio. Once we have an idea, we take it into story. Once that happens, it goes to the concepting department. They start to jam out concepts for sets, for shots, for effects, for characters. Once we're happy with that, it goes to the modeling department. They create the models, they put the surfaces on, then onto animation. We animate the characters. We get all of the characters and sets together. We send it on to lighting and effects. And out, at the end of the day, pops a finished film. So I'm probably leaving out about 1,000 steps. So, tell you what, let me show you. So let's move on to storyboarding. This is where the scripts, the initial ideas all come together and take shape as a film. This is where we get our first look at what a movie's actually going to be in 2D. This is Mark Messenger. Mark Messenger is one of our storyboarders, and he is also directing the newest WoW intro.
This is Kerrigan doing Battle with the Zerg. This is her stomping on the new Gettysburg sign and sliding into home plate, decloaking, as it were, and taking out a lot of Zerg. So we've got a lot of layers here.
Okay, this is the Conceptors bullpen. This is where the ideas for characters, sets, shots, effects come from. Comes out of these guys as crazy heads. Let's head over to modeling, and we'll show you a bit about how concepts become characters.
Basically, I've been creating this, just a generic male human. After this, I'll be creating a generic female that we can just more quickly create characters for our cinematics. In the past, we've had to model each character from scratch, and we realized we just lose a lot of time trying to do that over and over again. So it's just a lot faster to be able to create a generic character and then go in and change the face, add a lot of character, change the proportions and posturing and things of that sort.
Down over here, we have some of the in-game modelers. That means they're working on cinematics that will actually be played in the engine, real time. Come on over this way. So here's some of the cool stuff. This is real time. These are new movies for StarCraft 2, and you can see that we're actually working with the game engine to create finished pieces that are films, just like any other Blizzard film that we've ever made, but it's all done using the StarCraft engine. All right, let's sneak up on James over here, and he'll show off a bit about how we actually make things move.
Basically, what our department does is we try to make these characters feel convincing. We take all this amazing art that the modelers and texture artists and the conceptors throw together, and we make the stuff look cool. We bring some life to these characters. So, for example, we take a character like this, Zeratul, and we have this cool action scene. We want to make it believable, so we try to add as much weight and as much character to these characters as we can.
Let's head over here to the simulation department. These are the guys who do all the rigging, all the dynamic simulations on characters. That would be hair, that would be cloth, that would be skin and muscle jiggle. This is Jim, and he'll show you a bit about how we're doing hair.
We do all kinds of dynamic simulations, so things that are either too complicated to animate by hand and require some sort of dynamic solver. So things that involve any kind of realistic physics interactions like hair, we will run here. In this situation, we're binding polygons to act as cloth meshes, and the wind will blow it around and Kerrigan, as she takes her goggles off. So some of our final results basically look like this. To create, semi-physically realistic motions, and that's what we do in the simulation department.
Come on over this way, we'll head to the lighting department. This is where we do lighting, compositing, and effects to basically take all the pieces, jam them together, and come up with the final product, final shots.
A lot of what we do is to make it look as cool as possible. So what we're starting to do is comp in some atmosphere. So we create this light ray, bring it into 3D space, drop it in, use a depth pass, and we do that with all kind of atmosphere, just to liven it up, make it look as cool as possible.
So as you can see, there are a lot of people who put a lot of time, effort, and energy into creating these films. In fact, it usually takes a good year to produce, say, one of these, an intro for World of Warcraft. So, thanks for playing. We got to get back to work. We'll get back to you at BlizzCon.
And that was a look at the Blizzard Cinematics department. Does some amazing work, and now they're doing it in-game for StarCraft 2 as well, which they mentioned in the piece. They're doing 45 minutes of in-game cinematics for StarCraft 2.
It's absolutely crazy. And I mean, the amazing thing about the cinematics department at Blizzard is that when a lot of new characters are being developed or monsters are being developed, it actually starts in the cinematics department very often. So they have an incredible impact on what actually happens in the game. It's just not about the cutscenes.
Interesting. Good to know. All right. Well, we'll hear more from their cinematics department a little later on in the show, but right now we're going to Twitter because we're interacting with you guys, the viewers all around the world. And if you want to contact us, you can get us on Twitter. I'm at Jeff Keighley. We have at the DTV for DirecTV, and also at Cat Hunter. So send us your questions. And right now we're actually going to go to a question here on my Twitter page, and we're going to see the first question here comes from Julie Cater. It says, on how many games is Blizzard currently working right now? Well, we just talked to Paul Sands, and it sounds like it's going to be 4 games, right?
4 plus BattleNet, which they seem to consider a game.
Yeah, so they've got World of Warcraft. We heard about the Cataclysm expansion.
Exactly.
They've got StarCraft 2 in development. They've got Diablo 3. And then finally this mystery, massively multiplayer game.
MMO, which it sounds like we're not going to hear anything more about this year at BlizzCon, which was a big question we all had, was where are we going to get more details? But
what is the speculation in the fan community about what that game might be, Kat?
You know, a lot of people are wondering if it's a StarCraft MMO.
Okay.
I mean, if they're going to stick with their original IPs, but then, you know, there's also been a lot of rumors that it's absolutely going to be a new IP. So, you know, who knows at this point? They've been pretty tight-lipped about it.
And sometimes with Blizzard, they seem to announce these games, and you know, like Warcraft Adventures or StarCraft Ghosts, they'll announce a game and they won't even ship it if they don't think it's going to be good enough. So I'm sure they're being somewhat cautious now.
Yeah, I think
what's going to happen.
I think after Ghost Weekend, they're going to make sure that until they know the game is right, they're not going to talk about it.
Amazing. Well, as Paul mentioned also, you know, console is not ruled out for Diablo 3. It'll be interesting to see if they might bring something like Diablo 3 to the Xbox or PlayStation, which I think is probably the game that is a most natural sort of extension to the console platform.
It is. And you and I both had a chance to play Diablo 3 a little bit recently here at Blizzard offices. And definitely spending time with the game, you can tell that console would be a very natural adaptation for the way that the battle works.
Maybe at BlizzCon 2010. All right, well, let's go back here to the Twitter and see what some other folks are saying about it. Now, there's a lot of talk here about the new Azeroth in the World of Warcraft expansion pack, and Brazil 201 says, with the new Azeroth, I take it the flight pass will be different. Example, no more South Shore for Alliance. Kat, what do you think about that?
Right, there won't be. And actually, I had a tweet about that that was very funny from Rebound. And he said, we lost the South Shore. No! And for anyone who's ever played Alliance, we never had the South Shore. I hate to break the news to you, but it is. They're going to have to redefine almost all the flight points from what we were seeing on that map today.
Now, flyable mounts, that seems to be something that people were really excited about in the trailer. How is that going to change the World of Warcraft?
Well, I think it's going to make farming a lot easier, obviously. You're going to be able to fly all around the old world. I mean, a lot of the reason why I don't farm any of my old mats anymore is just because, you know, riding a horse takes so long. But, you know, it's going to open up new terrain, and we're going to be able to explore the way that the new terrain has been affected. So it should be exciting.
Now, out of all the other things they talked about in the Cataclysm expansion pack, what are you most excited about?
Well, if they are, I like the fact, okay, if you look at World of Warcraft and you say that it is never going to be the same again, and this is a place that I've lived for the last 5 years, the fact that now all that is gone, it has a little of an emotional tint to it for me, and that's exciting. I no longer have the old game anymore. I have an entirely new world to live in. That is so exciting, it's hard to describe for me.
All right, well, speaking of Blizzard, we're now going on to the Diablo 3 Heroes and Monsters panel in the main hall, so let's check that out right now, exclusively here on DirecTV. Enjoy it.
Welcome to the Diablo 3 Heroes and Monsters.
Can we have more smoke, please? What was that? Oh, what was that? Get this off.
nearly took out the whole table.